It can get a little bit cold and dreary in the winter time, but have I got a stew to brighten up your day? This is a spicy chili pork dish, and I'm going to serve it with the most amazing oregano and butter flatbreads. Now, to start the stew, I've just got a big heavy base pot on the heat here, on quite a high heat, because we want to seal off the meat. When making a stew, you really need to get some good colour on the pork. If you don't get good colour on the pork, you're going to miss out on some of that delicious flavour. So I've got some pork neck here. Pork neck's also called pork scotch, and you can get it from all your supermarkets now and from all your butchers. What I like about it is it's got a little bit of marbling of fat, as you can see there. This is fantastic for stewing because it's going to keep the meat really soft, and once the meat is cooked, it's going to start falling apart. At this stage, I'm going to season it with a good pinch of salt and a good crack of pepper. And while that's sealing on that side, we can get other ingredients ready. So in here, I've got quite a lot of garlic. So I'm just going to reserve 2 of these garlic cloves for the flatbread later. And for this garlic, I just want to bruise them and then slice them. You don't need to finely chop them at all. And I did call this a chili pork stew, so we need some chilies. I've got some dried chilies here that I've just been rehydrating in some water. Don't get rid of this water because there's loads of flavour in this water. I'm actually going to be using it in the stock. These chilies have got a big kick to them. I'm going to cut these, and I'm also going to leave the seeds in it because I do want this chili pork to have a good kick to it. So that's ready to go. Let's have a look at the pork now. I'm going to turn it over. Beautiful. That's what I'm looking for. Nice golden colour on each side. I'm going to turn this over, and we're going to cook this again for another minute or so, and once that's golden brown, I'll remove it, place it on a plate, and then I'm going to fry the onions, the chili, garlic, and a little bit of chorizo. Now this is looking fantastic. You can see the onions are all soft. Now the pork can go straight back into the pot along with all the juices. We'll give it a quick mix, and now I'm going to add some spices and some bay leaves. So 2 bay leaves along with 1 tablespoon of smoked paprika, some cumin and coriander powder, and 1 cinnamon stick. So a good amount of spices for this to make it extra interesting. Another quick mix, and we can go on to the next stage, which is adding some tomatoes, and this is going to give it a lovely richness. So some whole tomatoes can go in, and then just with a spoon, you want to break the tomatoes up, squish them, because this is going to develop and make a really yummy, lush sauce. All right, last bit of liquid is the reserved water from the chilies. Now that's about 1½ cups. So now I'm going to bring this to the boil. I'm going to put the lid on and then turn it down to a low heat. And this is going to cook for 1.5 hours or until that meat starts falling away. Now this is almost cooked. It needs about 20 to 30 minutes, and this is when I add just 1 potato cut in 4, and this is going to soak up all the juices and cook quite fast. It's also going to thicken up the sauce. So once the potatoes are in, I'm also going to add some raisins for some sweetness. So again, another level of flavour for this delicious stew. So a handful of raisins. Now onto my favourite part, which is the soft and fluffy wraps that I'm going to be turning into garlic and oregano flatbreads. These are so delicious, and I like to use these soft and fluffy wraps because they're a little bit thicker, which means they're going to absorb that really delicious butter that I'm going to make. So I'm going to make 4 here, and into a mortar and pestle, I'm going to start by pounding 2 cloves of garlic. I like to do this because it extracts as much flavour as possible out of the garlic and the oregano. So a pinch of salt there, and this is going to release some of the liquid, and once it starts to turn into a puree, this is when I start to add the fresh oregano. You can use dried oregano for this, but I find fresh is best. A good handful. And again, I'm going to start bruising it and softening it. Now we need some butter in here. So I've just softened about 50 grams of butter. That can go in, and you can either use the spoon or just mush it all together So once you can see all the speckles of oregano in there, you know that this butter is absolutely perfect. Now I'll just scrape that off with a spoon and that's ready to go. So just using that spoon, we're just going to get about half a dessert spoonful and just smear some of that oregano butter into the center of the wrap. And then I use a pastry brush and we're just going to spread that butter evenly across the top. Once all of the butter is spread onto my wraps, I'm going to place them in a hot oven, so 200 degrees on the wire rack. And the reason I put them straight on the wire rack is to ensure that the butter melts and starts to bubble away on the top, and then we get a really nice crispy base on them. The stew's ready, so I'm going to turn it off now and have a look at these wraps. They've puffed up nicely, they're soft and crunchy, the best of both worlds. They're going to be fantastic served with this stew. So in a big bowl, so I'm going to serve it up, and I'm also going to be generous with this stew because it's so hearty. And I like a little dollop of yogurt on this, just a little the tartness of it and the freshness. And speaking of freshness and a little bit of zing, some fresh lime just over the top and on the side. And with these wraps, I'm going to cut them in half, and I'll cut them in 4, and I like to add a few of these to the side. And the way you must eat this is grab a garlicky oregano triangle, place a good dollop of the meat on there, and dig in. That is so delicious, but the only thing that's missing here is maybe a fireplace in that corner and a big glass of red wine.